It all comes down to this week. Week 14. This is where champions are made. Producer, hit that button. Welcome to the Fantasy Forecast Weekend Wrap Up and Waiver Wire Show. Welcome to the Fantasy Forecast with Grindberg and Bigz. I am Bigz. He is Grindberg. It is week 14 of the fantasy season, which means that seasons are won and lost in this week. If you're right on the cusp of a playoff berth and you take the L, you're out, baby. If you are right there and you get the win, you're in. And we are here to help you shore up your lineups, make sure that happens, make sure you get into the playoffs, make sure you get into the playoffs with the players that have the best matchups in weeks 15, 16, and 17 so that you can take home the shit. What's up, Mike? How you doing?
Not much, man. I'm doing pretty good. Not quite so fed because it's post-Thanksgiving, but it's long past.
It was my Thanksgiving, not your Thanksgiving. So ask me how my Thanksgiving went.
How was your Thanksgiving, big guy?
It was cool. Now ask me if I know how Australians make soup special.
Bigz?
No, ask me if I know what Australians use to make good soup.
What do Australians make to use good soup?
No. Ask me if I know.
Do you know what Australians make? Use to make good soup?
No.
Perfect.
If you're in food service, you got that, and you're laughing right now.
All right, Bigz, let's get into the meat and the potatoes, if you will, of the show. And
how about we get into the turkey and the gumbo of it all?
Let's go. Let's do it up. Okay, well, let's talk about what happened this weekend, and quite a bit went down the slate. A lot of the big games happened on Thanksgiving, some moneymaker of games, and I got to talk about with the first storyline here, and there's something happening down in Dallas, and there's some wide receiver chaos, maybe a new alpha emerging. The Cowboys didn't pull off a Thanksgiving thriller. They may have completely reshaped the NFC playoff picture and ignited one of the spiciest fantasy football debates of the season in a 31-28 win that built momentum. Defensive revival and Dak Prescott playing like an MVP candidate. Dallas storm back from the brink of, elimination to reassert themselves in that postseason hunt. CeeDee Lamb reclaimed that superstar status and 7 for 112 and a touchdown, proving once again he's one of the league's elite separators and chain movers. But right beside him, George Pickens continued to carve out a massive role, leading the team in targets yet again and showcasing the big play profile that has made him a matchup-breaking fantasy asset all year. With both CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens erupting at the perfect time for fantasy managers and Dallas's offense firing at full power, Bigz, who do you believe should be treated as the true wide receiver one in Dallas rest of season, or does it even matter? How does this translate next year into Pickens' contract if that was an issue?
Well, that was 3 questions, Mike. The first part of your question, why not both? As far as who's one, it's 1A, 1B. This is a situation that we try and talk about with other teams, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. We try and talk about it with, the Detroit Lions. We're really only seeing it with 2 teams. We've got the LA Rams with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, and then we have the Dallas Cowboys with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, and they've figured out what they have, and they figured it out at the right time, and they made the defensive changes that they needed to make, and this Dallas Cowboys team looks like in a Dak Prescott up year, it could be an absolute wagon heading into the playoffs. They're playing better than just about anybody over the last couple weeks, especially their main rival, the Philadelphia Eagles. The NFC looks you have a 9-win San Francisco team. It's tied with 9 wins, just like the Rams. You got Seattle playing out of their heads. You got Dallas. You got Philly, who's in the picture. The Bears are like playing out of their minds, but Detroit and Green Bay are lurking. It's a huge, huge playoff race in the NFC, and it's going to shake out over the next few weeks. And as for the last part of your question, who knows? I said on the show before that I think that George Pickens is going to test the market. I don't think he's going to sign with the Cowboys right away unless they offer him $40 million plus. But how can you sustain that with Dak's contract, with CeeDee Lamb getting paid, now giving another wide receiver $40 million? I don't know if a salary cap can handle that. Maybe some of the moves that they made at the trade deadline with some cheaper veterans and getting rid of Micah Parsons, maybe that opens up the books for George Pickens. But I think that George Pickens knows that he's going to get 40 to 45 million somewhere else. And we'll just have to wait through the offseason to see how that plays out. And what are you asking offseason questions for? This is fantasy playoffs, baby. We're right.
Knock it off. I was just asking a question about a really
home stretch
topic right now. And I think that contract is going to make a big difference, moving, as far as how the rest of the season is going to play out here. They're testing each other, and George deserves it. And I think the Cowboys may pay up for him. So we'll see what happens there, Bigz.
Sure. And we will see what happens. And if you, the viewer, want to know what happens, make sure you start tuning into the Dynasty Pulse every week, because we will have off-season content where this one kind of shuts down. Fantasy Forecast takes a hiatus during the offseason, but Dynasty Pulse is right there with our fingers on the pulse through the offseason. So we will be talking about the George Pickens contract situation in full. So make sure you tune into that.
All right, so the Panthers now have a running back nightmare. Is Chuba taking over, or is just another trap? Week 13 may have given us the most confusing chapter yet in the Carolina Panthers backfield saga. Rico Dowdle once again handled a respectable volume, 18 carries and 21 receiving yards, so not too bad, but he failed to stand out, grinding his way to just 58 rushing yards and extending his touchdown drought to 3 straight games. Meanwhile, Chuba Hubbard delivered one of his best outings of the season, ripping off 124 scrimmage yards and a 35-yard catch and score that reminded everybody of his early season explosiveness. The frustrating part, the usage split stayed almost dead even. Carolina didn't commit to Hubbard. They just leaned into him when he flashed, which is exactly the problem for fantasy managers trying to make sense of this mess. And now the Panthers go into their bye week with zero clarity and maximum volatility here. Rico Dowdle is clearly losing that RB1 grip on this backfield, now looking like a full-blown split. How should fantasy managers treat these guys moving forward, Bigz? Are both Dowdle and Hubbard sneaky, shaky flex options now? And if so, which one do you trust more down the stretch for consistent playoff value?
But we see this happen in every positional room except for with a healthy quarterback. When you have multiple people in a position room, running back, wide receiver, tight end, there are going to be weeks like this. We have Zach Charbonnet, who sometimes outscores the RB1 and Kenneth Walker. We have Tyler Allgeier, who sometimes outscores Bijan Robinson. Game script dictated this. Rico Dowdle is still the RB1 in Carolina. It's one game. And, honestly, this is why we play fantasy football. Otherwise, we'd just only be playing best ball. We'd all draft our teams and then just walk away and see where the cards fall. But in managed leagues like Redraft on ESPN and Yahoo, the kinds that we play for this show, these are the kind of moves that you have to think about. And a 1 week spike is not necessarily the story. The story is the fact that Rico Dowdle has had the lion's share of carries over the last month, and Chuba Hubbard was involved in this game script. It doesn't necessarily mean anything going forward. So I still think that you play Rico Dowdle, and if you want to roster Chuba Hubbard, or if you have him on the bench, sometimes he's going to have a day like this, and you're going to, man, I could have had those points in my lineup. I know I did that all over the place this week with different players, but that said, it's still Rico Dowdle as the RB1.
Okay, good to know. And that's how I'll play it too. I think He's been struggling a little bit in the pass protection, which I think has helped Chuba get on the field a little bit more. Chuba's, recovered, I think, fully now from that injury that plagued him earlier in the season that kept him out of the lineup, that caused, obviously, Rico to get that role in the offense here. And, I think you hit it right there. I think it's going to be more game dependent, but it was kind of upsetting to see in such a game script heavy kind of a game that Dowdle wasn't used more. But I mean, it's a tough Rams defense, and just Chuba had the better upside here.
I think if it was a Carolina blowout, we might have seen a lot more Rico.
But. Yeah. Okay. Now let's move on to the next storyline, and that's Jameson Williams. Is he becoming Detroit's next superstar, or just teasing us once again? He just didn't step into a raw role in week 13 after his injury. He detonated and it went off. He was sidelined early, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and that's when Williams exploded. Now, two of the biggest target earners in that Lions offense are now sidelined. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta are now, potentially gone for a little bit of time here. We know that Laporta's on IR, and Amon-Ra didn't practice today, and I think it's going to be tough for him to start in a short week against Dallas on Thursday. So that means the blend of that world-class speed, his improved route discipline, and growing chemistry with Jared Goff, it was on full display. But you fool me once, you fool me twice, you fool me 3 times, and that it just seems like what's happening here with Jameson Williams. And when you think you could trust him, another down game happens, and that could happen again here, even in a juicy matchup. He could put up another goose egg. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that has just kind of been the pattern. So that's the dilemma here, Bigz. Is he finally trustworthy enough to start weekly as the wide receiver 2 for the rest of the season, especially if the sun god misses more time? Or should fantasy managers still treat him like a boomer bust flex play with massive volatility? How confident are you rolling him out during the fantasy playoffs?
I'm 100% confident. I understand the relationship between Jared Goff and Jameson Williams. I understand Dan Campbell's imperative to get the ball into Jameson Williams' hands. He knows what he has with Jameson Williams. This was an indicator of that. I hesitate to say that the only reason that he exploded in this game was because Amon-Ra St. Brown went down early. Jameson Williams is good, and we were targeting him coming into the season. There's been, like you said, some volatility. But the bottom line is that this is week 14 of the season. We need to get the best matchups that we can moving forward. And then in the playoffs, it's a week-to-week thing. So I'm not looking at stuff as far as rest of the season, except for looking for good matchups. And Jameson Williams has good matchups. It is a Thursday game, but I'm going to remind everybody that it's not a short week. Both the Lions and the Cowboys played on Thanksgiving, which is a Thursday. So they both will have a full week of rest and practice, just like if it was a Sunday to Sunday game. So the indicator today we're recording this before Monday Night Football, was that Amon-Ra didn't practice today and likely won't play on Thursday. So fire up Jameson Williams. He's going to be the number 1 target earner, and it's going to be him and Gibbs, and hopefully a shootout with Dallas. And we'll see huge points from Dak, Jared, Javonte, Jameer, Jameson, CeeDee, and George.
Sounds like a firm, like an attorney firm, a lawyer firm. George, Jameer, everybody's going off on Thursday. Hopefully, I just hope it's not a Thursday night dud, but it shouldn't be. It's lined up that way, and both teams are right in the thick of that wild card race. And one team's on a different trajectory than the other. Yeah, it's going to be good. I think it's going to happen here. So maybe some points here. All right, Bigz, let's move on to our next story. And the fantasy managers that held the bag, now they've won. Rashee Rice becomes the guy everybody wanted, but had some skepticism on holding on to him. He spent his entire young career wrapped in controversy, but for fantasy managers who held on to him firm through his 6-week suspension, he's turning into pure gold at exactly the right time. Since returning, Rice has been nothing short of electric. Mahomes' most dynamic target, the engine of Kansas City's passing game, and a nightmare for defenses once the ball is in his hands. Week 13 was no exception. He erupted, 8 catches, 92 yards, 2 touchdowns. That wasn't a fluke. He is clearly, he's the clearest signal yet that it's the focal point of the offense here. The most important part is the opportunity. The KC roster has no true wide receiver 2 right now stepping up. The run game is inconsistent, and Mahomes is being asked to elevate an offense that lacks explosive playmakers that are making plays right now. Funnel gadgets, high leverage targets, straight to Rice, and he's becoming the scheduled theme here for the Chiefs. He's emerged as a late league winner, and his target share is only growing, especially when you look at the matchups down the stretch, including a tough one. Week 17 versus the Denver Broncos in the fantasy championship weekend, the same team that held him to his lowest point total of the season. Do you trust him as a must start wide receiver 1 for the fantasy playoffs, or are you still enough volatility in the Chiefs offense to treat him as a boomer bust option here, Bigz?
I don't know. Okay, so looking at his season so far, he's played in 6 games. He had a dark green matchup against Vegas, 23 points. Dark green against Washington, 25 points. Dark green against Dallas, 29 points. Mid-orange against Buffalo, he was held under 20. Indianapolis was green. He had 24 points. And then you have the big red Denver, 9.8 points. For the next 2 weeks, he's got Houston, which is absolutely nightmare against wide receivers. The Chargers, who aren't a whole lot better. Tennessee is an open wide matchup, so I'm starting him in week 16. And then Denver is the team. Pat Surtain is going to be on him and locked in. He's had double-digit targets in 3 of the games, 9 in 2 of them, and then 7 against Buffalo. I don't know what to make of it. I understand the talent level. It's just he doesn't appear to be matchup proof. So I'm a little hesitant. I feel like it has to do more to do with what else is on my roster. For example, we're going to talk about waiver ads in the next few minutes. We're going to give a couple of wide receivers out there. If we pick those wide receivers up on waivers and we go into week 15 against the Chargers, I'm playing Rashee Rice over that waiver pickup, even if it's a bad matchup. So he's still a starter. He's still a wide receiver 1-2 in your fantasy lineup. But if I have a stacked roster where I have 3 or 4 wide receiver ones, and I can afford to make the smart play and sit Rashee against a bad matchup, then I'm going to do that. But if he's the stud that I've been, my wide receiver 1 going forward, I don't think that I can bench him.
No, and you wouldn't. It's just a matter of it's been gravy for you, but yeah, I know. Yeah, you would. I know. If you're stacked enough. Absolutely. All right, bud. Let's get into our L's and W's from the week previous. We're going to go over week 13 studs and dud calls that we had. And Bigz, you didn't make it on the show, but you made a show sheet. I don't know if you want to update everybody and see how your calls would have gone. You were getting full on Thanksgiving, but I'm not sure if you want to go over
share. You didn't tell everybody who I had?
No. Do you want to go over it?
Boo. Yeah, sure. So first of all, I'm gonna start with I'm wearing the L hat, but LSU this week is a win, signing Lane Kiffin away from Ole Miss. We saw what Lane Kiffin did with the Jackson Dart development. We saw what he did with Chambliss this year. He is coaching Ole Miss into the playoff, and it's exactly what LSU needs, especially with their recruiting base. So that's a win for the L. My first L is going to be, I said to start Khalil Shakir. I did in a very important matchup in my home league, and he got 1.5 points. So that's not great. All right, moving on to all of the wins. Now, I'm wearing this W hat to represent the wins, even though Washington took one in the shorts against Oregon, and they lost. Shout out to Washington State for winning the Pac-2 championship. It was the Pac-12. Now there's 2 teams in it, Oregon State and Washington State. They were each 1-1, but Washington State comes out the Pac-2 championship. Okay, on to my studs. I said sit Waddle. He had 7 points. I said sit Metcalf. He had 6.2 points. And I said start Kamani Vidal against the Raiders. He had an absolute star-making performance against the Raiders. Had a breakout run for a touchdown, was catching the ball all over the place, and finished with 20.7 fantasy points as RB4. Breakfast with Bigz got cut off 7 minutes in. I don't know what happened. It just froze on YouTube and didn't record the rest of it. But all of the calls that I made on Breakfast with Bigz were really good calls. And then my brother texts me every week who he should start and sit and stuff. And I got most of those right too. So it was a great big winning week for me. So good, the winning hat stays on.
I also had a pretty dang good week as well on the front there, especially online. I mean, I had a lot of people come to me and ask about some start and sit questions. We were telling a lot of people to start Adonai Mitchell, and that turned out to be very, very good for us. And, you know, a couple other good calls here. I'll go over my bad call of the week here, and there's always one, it seems. And my bad call was to start Michael Wilson, who only went 3 for 36. Not a great game for him in a plus matchup, but it didn't evolve the way it should have for him. And with Marvin Harrison coming back, not a great game, but Bo Nix starting, he finished as a QB 13. Not a great call, but certainly didn't kill you. But then my two monster calls was to sit Emeka Ibuka, who only had 8 fantasy points, and same with Rico Dowdle was a great sit call for me. We talked about him earlier in the segment here, and 2 guys that were projected to be top 12 guys. I told you to sit, and they did not perform anywhere near that. So, Schultzy told everybody to sit Sam Darnold and Michael Pittman Jr., both very good calls. He told everybody to start Mechie. Not the greatest call, but, somebody else made a good addition there. That was Adonai Mitchell. And then he told everybody to start Bucky Irving / Rashad White. Bucky was a good call. So good for you, Schultzy.
Rashad White wasn't good. But I'm sure he probably said, if Bucky's playing, start Bucky, and sit Rashad White.
It was start them both, but in context.
Well, mixed bag on that, but still he nailed the 2 sits. So overall, we'll give a 68% for Schultzy.
All right, Bigz. Let's get into our waiver wire pickups for week 14. And why don't you start us off, my friend?
Okay. I accidentally dropped the thing. All right. My quarterback waiver wire ad is shucks. Tyler Shuck, New Orleans quarterback. He had his second double-digit performance. It's gonna be a guy that you want on your bench. He's not owned. Go get him. They have good matchups coming up through the fantasy playoffs. So just in case something happens, Tyler Shuck looks pretty good. Chris Olave had a drop on a ball that would have been a touchdown. Other than that, he could have had an over 20-point performance. And why not?
Why not? Why not shuck it up? And hopefully we could see more of that happening here. And a guy, especially in 2 quarterback leagues, is someone that he's definitely serviceable and potentially could, look into your next couple of weeks. And if a plus matchup hits, he could be a guy if you're streaming quarterbacks. Absolutely. My pickup at that position, tight end quarterback, we're going to talk about Brenton Strange, who's coming on as of late, had an injury earlier this season, but he finished week 13, 3 catches for 45 yards, but that touchdown sealed the deal on 4 targets. He's becoming more of a mainstay in that Jags offense that's looking for playmakers. Obviously, with Brian Thomas Jr. coming back, nursing that injury, it's going to be a slower ramp up. We saw what happened with Jacoby Myers after the Parker Washington incident, and Parker Washington looking like he's going to be missing some time, and then insert Brenton Strange, who's going to probably garner some of those targets there. So a sneaky pickup here if you're streaming tight ends, and a guy that I'd be looking to have on my radar as the playoff surge comes in, and these Jags are looking to fight for a playoff spot, and they are going to be into some intense games as the next couple of weeks roll on here.
Yep.
All right, Bigz, what do you got at the wide receiver position?
So for wide receiver, Tom Kennedy.
Battery 15%.
Now, I didn't know. I didn't watch the Detroit game on Thursday, but I didn't know that Tom Kennedy was a person. I didn't know he even existed, let alone was an NFL wide receiver, let alone getting more targets than Isaac Tesla in the Detroit Lions offense. So if Amon-Ra St. Brown is down for Thursday's game against the Cowboys, Tom Kennedy is going to be getting the slot targets. So why not?
Why not? Tom Kennedy. Interesting call. I mean, could be a 1 week play, especially in your deep roster leagues. If you're looking for somebody, you might have just lost Amon-Ra St. Brown and are looking for a decent floor here. And Kennedy, 4 targets, caught all 4 of them for 36 yards. Interesting play. And I'm surprised you didn't go with your homeboy, Isaac Tesla. But, I
was going to until I saw that he had 2 targets and one of them was a touchdown upside play. But Tom Kennedy
is the guy. Let's go. All right. I'm going to get into my spotlight, and my spotlight is going to be at the wide receiver position. And I'm sure Bigz would have put this guy on the way on our sheet had he got there early enough. But the guy that I'm looking at,
I had him weeks ago.
Yeah, I had him weeks ago. Adonai Mitchell weeks ago, exactly. Week 13, he gave us a showing and plenty to think about. And if you're scouting the waiver wire, you should be looking for, Adonai Mitchell. The name stands out at wide receiver. He just joining the Jets, but since acquiring him from the Colts in November, he's emerged as a key target of that offense that's been missing Garrett Wilson, and the Jets playing from behind often. And with Tyrod Taylor, Mitchell's speed and route running and chemistry have made him a legitimate scoring threat every week. Sunday was just capped it off. 102 yards, 1 touchdown performance against Atlanta. I didn't think it was a fluke. The signs pointed to that. He carved out a major role, and I think he's going to continue to do that. 25 targets in his last 3 games, 85% offensive snaps in each of the last 2 weeks. He caught that monster touchdown, and I'm looking for him as a guy that could potentially be a guy that you could play every single week as a wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside, as long as Garrett Wilson's out, and it doesn't look like he's coming back anytime soon. So grab him now and watch your fantasy roster propel into some better league weeks here with Adonai Mitchell in your lineup.
That Jets wide receiver room was kind of interesting because Tyrod Taylor in, Justin Fields out, and a few weeks ago we saw a lot of targets for both John Mechie and Adonai Mitchell. Adonai Mitchell was dropping everything that was thrown his way, but I saw that he was getting the target. So I had him on the show sheet for our waiver wire show 3 weeks ago, I want to say. And this week kind of gave some clarity. However, Wilson's coming back next week. I do want to throw out another name, and that's David Sills of the Atlanta Falcons. The last 2 weeks, he had 3 targets against New Orleans and 4 against the Jets. He's got a terrible matchup in week 14 against Seattle. 15 should be good, but he wound up scoring 9 points in both games and had a touchdown in each game. And when Kirk Cousins was asked about it, Kirk Cousins and David Sills were essentially the Falcons practice squad while Michael Penix was working with the first team and Drake London and everything. So Kirk Cousins and David Sills, they just spent the last couple months throwing the ball to each other. David Sills, 29 years old. He came into the league in 2020, apparently. Again, another guy who was absolutely not on the radar. He's had targets in every game from week 8 on. And so that's another name to look at. Not a lot of 29-year-old wide receivers from the practice squad that you're running out there and grabbing, but David Sills is another name to kind of watch just because of his chemistry with Kirk Cousins. Why not?
Why not? Why not? Today's a kind of a why not kind of day, and let's hear about your spotlight here, Bigz. Or I'm just going to spotlight him for you.
All right, my spotlight is going to be another Atlanta Falcon, Tyler Allgeier. Why not? We saw Bijan Robinson have an absolute monster day. And one thing that happens when running backs have huge days like that is the team kind of like pulls the brakes on them a little bit and says, hey, whoa. Okay, you're doing just fine. Let's rest you a little bit. We don't want to, you're doing fine. We don't want you to risk anything. And then the RB2 starts to get a little bit more of a look. So coming down the stretch, Tyler Allgeier, why not?
Why not? Yeah. I mean, he's a touchdown gobbler. He's been gobbling touchdowns from Bijan all year. And yeah, I like what you say here. He's definitely roster for, like, he's definitely worth being on your roster and a guy you could plug and play and flex, almost on a weekly basis here with the touchdown upside. And another guy as well that is, steaming up here, and a guy that is, splitting the backfield, but it's becoming more of an even split now, and fantasy managers should be on the lookout. Bigz mentioned him a couple of weeks ago on the show, picking up Corum, and he's carved out a role in that backfield led by Kyren Williams. And the matchup against Carolina showed how dangerous he could be if given the opportunity. Williams, he returned after a minor ankle injury, but Corum took advantage of his touches, showcased his speed, his vision, his explosiveness in every carry, and he's great in the red zone. He had 81 rushes on just 7 carries, 12 yards per carry almost, high efficiency mark, scored a touchdown, played 40% of the snaps in every game since week 7. So his role is increasing and he's consistently involved in that high power Rams offense. And as these games get tougher down the stretch, they're going to be relying more on that ground and pound, and Corum is going to come in. He's not a handcuff anymore. He's a legitimate fantasy option with upside, especially if Williams' ankle gives him reason to lean on him more. So in a league full of volatility at running back, having a player like Corum, like Allgeier on your roster could be the difference between scraping into the playoffs and owning a matchup swinging asset. And that's what Corum and Allgeier can do for your team in the right setting. And let's go Bigz.
Why not?
Why not? All right, buddy. Why not tell everybody where to find all our content and what we are doing this week?
Well, you can find us on Thursday after the football game, right as it ends. We start. That's points after Thursday. Thursday night starts and sits live stream with me and Grindberg. We'll be going over the whole weekend as a preview. Then Friday, our sits show drops. Saturday, our start show drops. Friday is also our Dynasty Pulse drop. And then we go then breakfast with Bigz, 8:30 a.m., hopefully with 0 technical difficulties this week. And I got a buddy coming in with me, my guy Charlie from up in Grass Valley. He sat in with me for a little bit on Sunday, and he's going to come back this next Sunday. And then back at it again with the Week 14 wrap-up and the Waiver Wire show to get your playoffs started. So, hey, you play fantasy football? Do you want to be in the playoffs? Watch our shows. You want to win your championship? Watch our shows. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that stuff. Watch all of the content on FSAN because a lot of sharp people around this community, and we're making champions with everybody.
We are making champions, and from all of us on FSAN,
Why not?
say? Why not? We hope you win.
We hope you win.
Peace out, everybody.